Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen. We're still following up with our segments, and now's episode, or we're going to talk about this topic, which is in today's fast world, the difference between success and survival sometimes comes down to one word, which is strategy. And now let me welcome Mr. Ahmed ELLEISSY, the international consultant and strategic management and writer. Well, first of all, Mr. Ahmed, I would like to welcome you in Nile Cruise, and it's a great honor.
Thank you for having me.
Well, Dr. Ahmed, of course, anything in the world includes planning and strategic planning, let's say, and the setup of any successful work, project, education. It's planning and strategy. How is this important? Can you tell us more about what strategy is?
Very simply, strategy is what we call the how. Strategy is the set of processes and actions and plans to get to a certain objective. So if we have a certain objective, whether for a company or a governorate or a ministry, we need to build a strategy. So, for example, given the huge success that Egypt had recently with the Egyptian Museum, that's a strategy. We obviously have an objective to increase the number of tourists coming to Egypt, and the government and the current administration, with the leadership of President Sisi, took a shift or a change of strategy from what used to be only coastal tourism into bringing in depth the historic value of Egypt. That's simply its strategy. So the objective is how to increase the number of tourism, and the strategy in this case was a shift towards the reinforcing and underscoring the Egyptian heritage and the Egyptian monuments and antiquities that we have.
And of course, it was distinguished. This is, I think, in 100 years to come, this will never be forgotten, this dazzling museum. It's a one of a kind. It's dedicated to only one civilization. And of course, it's a great pride for all the Egyptians. So you think, of course, indulging strategy and strategic planning in any project can succeed, as you said. Now the government is yearning to enhance more than 30 million tourists and more. And of course, as you said, the strategic planning said that it's going to have like maybe 5 point something million tourists per year. But according to the planning, according to more strategic, now Egypt knows what can attract more tourists. And of course, aside from this grandeur that they can enjoy here in Egypt.
Definitely. To succeed, you know, the expression of cruising aimlessly, having a strategy is actually what holds or prevents us to be doing more of the same, expecting different results, which actually never happens. A strategy is a certain path that we draw for ourselves, and that also works for the personal life or career management. If somebody wants to reach a certain position in his career, he needs to have this as an objective, and then the strategy will be how is he going to get there. So he needs to build his skills and competencies in a way to ensure that he reaches what he wants to reach. So I think strategy for us has not been put into action enough in the past, and this is why we see sometimes somebody who would come into, say, a ministry and would go down a certain path, makes an investment, and then somebody else comes to succeed him and, you know, draws a totally different path. And at the end of the day, we have not advanced. When we have a well-set strategy with clear objectives, with a vision over time, then we highlight a certain path and a certain road that we follow. If the one of the major things about strategy, I say strategy is about saying no. So not that anything would appeal that we jump on it, because again, this will be a continuous set of small tactical steps. If we go into strategic approach, which I think Egypt is now starting, we see it in different aspects. One of them is the tourism. This is very clear. Another aspect is the infrastructure. And again, the infrastructure that we have been building, that's a strategic shift. Um, Before, we wanted investments to come, foreign direct investments specifically to boost the economy. Um, we have not been so successful, and one of the reasons is that we were not very clear, or when we understood why investments were not coming, at least not in the speed and the magnitude that we were interested in or we were aspiring to, we found that we have not had the right infrastructure for that. Accordingly, again, the current administration, with the leadership of President Sisi, has taken that path to build the infrastructure and the superstructure for the country, so investments would come, and then all of a sudden we see investments coming, um, and so on and so forth. Uh, it is about the long-term planning. It's about having a vision and walking a path that takes us and leads us towards this vision, and this is the only way we can succeed.
Well, I see always strategic planning as a science, let's say. How do you see this science developed here? Of course, now it's totally different, as you said, since a couple of years ago. How is the look now at this science in Egypt?
To be honest with you, we still have some distance to walk in that direction. Uh, the and this is why we see a lot of the military managers or people with military background do succeed in different parts, and
Because of discipline, too. This indulged discipline.
by the way, strategy is very much about discipline as well.
Of course, yeah.
But strategy is very rarely taught in many places. But one of the places that do teach strategy, because it's the core to success, is actually military. So we see a lot of people coming out of the military, and they work and they make breakthroughs in many different aspects of civil life. And it is not because necessarily that they had experience of this or that, but they have the framework, they have the structure in their mind on how to build the strategy according to reach an objective. Once you indulge in strategic management or strategic practice, success becomes very visible. You understand where you want to go, and you remove all the obstacles on the way. Unfortunately, we're not teaching, if I'm not mistaken, in most universities locally, the science of strategy.
I was just going to ask about that. Yeah.
So actually it is mostly in the military and in very few multinationals that do train their employees on strategy.
Well, I've seen that you, of course, you have a great experience in this field, and even your education on Harvard. And I think through your journey of knowing more about the science, you read a lot. It wasn't that easy as now, as a technology, as internet and such. So you've been having lots of info from international references, but you thought about doing it in Egyptian language and providing your thought, experience, and your knowledge to the Egyptians, that it can be easily read and can be indulged easily with a new thinking minds.
Absolutely. I think I had almost more than 3 decades of experience. Maybe I was lucky. It was very tough actually, but I have more than 3 decades experience and of practical experience in strategy management. And I added to that a lot of the academic or executive education in some of the best institutes in the world. Harvard is one of them, but many others. Um, and I thought, as my contribution, if you want, to the country which I love most, Egypt, is to write the first book about strategy and strategic management. It's very interesting if we look, and in that book we have a lot of examples. I mean, they're not secrets, but when a good strategy is put into place, we see beautiful results. Some of the very famous names of successful companies, and unfortunately, other way around. When companies or organizations, whether profit or non-profit or public, do not apply a very clear strategy, unfortunately, they fail. And if we are talking about the business world, many of them go bankrupted and go out of business. So really, I think a good sound strategy is the difference between success and vanishing from the scenes. So it is extremely important. We cannot really stress how important to manage anything we do, including, again, as I mentioned earlier, our personal lives through a very well thought strategic process.
Well, one about the gem, because I was there the other day covering, of course, for this great ceremony, and I've heard lots of high ranks speaking about how Egypt managed in a short time to do lots of conclusions for many mega projects, lots of this and that, and they were talking that they exceeded even years than other countries from the African Horn when it comes to the strategy and the agenda. So now we're not speaking anymore about 2030 agenda only, we're speaking about 2063 agenda in the whole world. So this also behind a good strategic and implementing a good planning and management.
Very much so, very much so. If we take again the example of the new museum, there are two change of strategies actually. One is in the execution strategy. We had the old museum in Tahrir Square, and if we look at the strategy or the way, again we said the strategy is the how. We were showing our treasures actually, because we cannot call them any other thing but treasures. It was not the best way to show them, and there was a good interesting story about how this whole idea came out when somebody asked the Minister of Culture, the ex-Minister of Culture, is like and he said, how is your warehouse doing? Because he was referring to the old Egyptian museum as a warehouse, because it was so small that we did not really have the capability of demonstrating and showing and merchandising our history in the right way. So the strategy of exhibition itself changed. That's one. And the second change comes again, as we mentioned earlier, from the idea of that we are not just nice beaches. There are many nice beaches around the world, but the only place in the world, and that's again one of the elements of a good strategy, is that you have a distinctive strategy. If you have a strategy that everybody else has, then you're not distinctive. I mean, you're just another number. There is no other place on the planet that has antiquities or presents the Egyptian history the way that museum does. So again, that's a very distinctive strategy, and that is what is going to bring people, I think, much more than just having beautiful beaches where people can sunbathe in them.
Well, Dr. Ahmed ELLEISSY, NASSEF, the international consultant and strategic management and writer, I would like to thank you so much for your informative interview.
Thank you for having me. It's a pleasure.
Thank you so much. A short break and we'll be back.